be back on the right path.
Tell me more about Girard. I had the chance to meet him toward the end of his career.
Oh, really?
He came to Mundelein Seminary to give a series of lectures.
Okay.
Marvelous person, great personality, and
Yeah.
remarkable looking person too. You discovered him through Peter Thiel. And
Correct.
You call Thiel one of the smartest people you ever met.
Yes.
I met him a couple times, and he is indeed a very bright man. I found with Girard, once you get it, you can't unget it. Once
Yes.
you see what he saw, it's like, oh my, that's everywhere.
Exactly.
He's one of these, I think he'll be seen as kind of a father of the church in 500 years because the spiritual perception is so deep. And the mimetic thing is, all advertising based upon it. Why do I want that product? Well, because someone else wants
Exactly.
it.
Right.
But then mimetic desire leads to mimetic rivalry.
Correct.
Now we're in conflict with each other,
Yes.
which also is everywhere in our society.
Correct.
So the rivalrous part of this is if I desire something because somebody else desires it, their desires inform my desires, we're now desiring the same thing. And then the more similar we are, the more aligned our desires become, which creates more and more of a zero-sum phenomenon. Which is why brothers fight more than cousins. Cousins fight more than people who are completely unrelated to one another.
Mimetic conflict leads to the scapegoating mechanism.
Sure.
You say it there, and I sensed it. You want to go to a Girardian playground, go into the social media.
That's right.
Of mimetic desire, mimetic rivalry, and scapegoating.
Yes.
The mobs that form online.
Correct.
I think he's the great prophet of our time.
Yeah, no, I think it's very interesting. He is certainly the prophet of social media because the thing about mimetic desire, again, this idea that we identify what we want based on what other people want. And again, once you see it, like you said, it's very hard to unsee it. I mean, look, I have a 9-year-old, I have a 6-year-old, I have a 4-year-old. To see it with children is unbelievable.
Very
obvious.
obvious.
My 9-year-old will pick up a toy that none of the kids has played with in 6 months, and instantly all of them want that toy. Again, it is such a powerful explanation of human psychology.
A vice president who studies his own children. It's just, like here's a thing for you guys to come up with. You're the collective brain here will be better than my own. When was the last time that we had a politician, a notable politician, who thought about social and political and theological issues on a high level of meta-analysis and abstraction, like a philosopher? Essentially, if I put on the thumbnail, a philosopher philosopher VP. I mean, I think of you go and you read the founding fathers, and clearly they're thinking very deeply about these sorts of issues. Because they're in the process of founding a nation, and so these things become very presently apparent to them. But the office of politician, broadly speaking, has degraded so far. And now we have this example. Trump has his own way sort of doing it, but he's still kind of what makes Trump stand out is that he's just like every politician. But it's like he's like every other politician in aesthetic, but it's like he distills every other politician into one person such that he becomes the perfect politician sort of that era. This era of sort of you guys say degenerate politicians or something like that. Not that Trump is degenerate necessarily, but he's not a philosopher. He's not someone who's well read and steeped in different schools of philosophy and comparing branches of thought to one another and stuff. He's natural. He doesn't need to do all of that. That isn't even a domain that is considered by him, because he just lives it organically. But to have a sort of I don't think I would necessarily call JD a polymath, but to have a very thoughtful guy like this as a politician, I can't think of one unless you go back to maybe there's like Teddy Roosevelt. There's what was his name? Senator Taft was sort of this way in a sense, and then I think Nixon had a little bit of it to him, but really a lot of the politicians have become just like creatures of their own time, and all they think about and talk about is like the immediate, pertinent, like geopolitical or cultural or social issues within the frame of just the current year, not zooming out and covering the whole length of time.
But here's the thing. In a normal society, pre-social media, right, this takes time, right? Like mimetic desire happens through normal social interactions. You see what somebody else is focused on. You see what somebody else cares about. But social media has sort of taken this and supercharged it. It can spread like wildfire. And so you see what other people are talking about, what other people are thinking, what other people are desiring much more quickly, because the virality of social media puts it in front of you at such a quick speed. And so again, because it sets that desire aflame and makes it spread so rapidly, it also makes the conflict side of it spread so rapidly. And how many times, I mean, you're not even on X or Twitter or whatever we're calling it these days, but if you go to like Facebook back in its early days, how many times would I see people that I knew and loved get into arguments on the internet where I would think to myself, this is not who you are. Like, these are two really lovely human beings that are calling each other these terrible names on social media. Like, how did we even get here?
Girard and your friend Peter Thiel as well. And we'll talk frankly about the demonic element.
Yes.
The devil has two great names in the Bible, right? He's Satanas, he's the accuser, and he's the Diabolos, which means the scatterer.
Yes.
There they are.
Yes,
Go to social media. Accusation and then division.
Yes.
No, but it's a playground for that. And I really think the church has got to be involved, not just,
And this is, so you have that, the scapegoating mechanism. This explains the whole retard right phenomenon. This explains with yesterday's show, the data center, panic, the fear of Skynet. Like, all of this stuff is all derivative from mimetic desire leading to mimetic rivalry, leading to scapegoating. But it's like they're talking about, it's totally supercharged by the internet. Because the internet just facilitates much faster communication. Really, that's what it is. Like, the internet facilitates both much faster communication and much more surface area for communication to happen simultaneously. So all of these natural patterns that used to take, they might have taken decades or like centuries or even decades to play out, just because you could even think of it as sort of an analogy. You could think of it like every single interaction that a human being has on the planet, and you total up like every single time a human being interacts with another human being. And if you were to chart this across time, then you would see that with the launch of the internet, you have like the launch of mass communication in general. So once you're able to send a telegram instead of having to ride a horse, you can have way more interactions back and forth. So it used to be like you'd have to write a letter to complete a single interaction with someone across the country. You would have to write a letter, then give it to someone else. They would ride that letter to the other person, and as soon as they got it and they opened it, there you go. Action completed. Or interaction completed. And then they write a response, they give it to the writer, carries it back. Now you've completed 2 interactions. But once you get the launch of global communication and then the internet and then social media on top of the internet, the number of human interactions that can occur, broken down in that autistic way, the number of interactions that can occur it goes from monthly to daily to hourly to multiple per second. You could sit here, you could get 10 different notifications that all come in at you in 1 second, all coming in from other people. They're all signaling desire to you. And you're having to constantly tune and recalibrate your own desire in that time frame. So these cycles can spin out of control way quicker because there isn't the time there, like a cooling off period where people can pull themselves back. They get sucked into it like a vortex. And so now you get, you have your favorite podcaster or politician or whatever who signals something, and then normally you might go listen to a radio show. Maybe let's take something like Tucker Carlson. He has a weekly radio show. You go listen to Tucker Carlson signal his desires, and you then feel compelled to mimic those desires, but then you're going to have a 1 week refractory period. And unless you go interact with other people who are also listening to Tucker Carlson, then you're not going to have that multiplicative effect happening as quickly. But if you go listen to Tucker Carlson, and while you're listening to him, you're scrolling through X and seeing people who are saying the same sorts of things, signaling the same sorts of desires, that mimetic desire explodes and becomes way more powerful, way more quickly. And then you go through the whole cycle, because ultimately that desire is then going to breed some sort of rivalry. So you're going to pick some other who you are engaged in a rivalrous state with, which is going to fast track its way to scapegoating. But then there's no, especially since cancellation has been kind of taken off the board as a real threat, then you can have a huge scapegoating, what would you call it? Like the big passionate summation of the scapegoating, where you've officially killed someone. We've sacrificed him. We've killed him. We all get the big release from his death. We all participated in stoning him to death, but all you did was you went and you like brigaded his mentions. And now, okay, so he died. He was scapegoated and killed. But all he has to do is post another tweet or another article or another video, and you kickstart the whole process all over again. He's not actually dying. So you're getting like a masturbatory scapegoating process that's genuinely driving people insane.
To inform people, but to name these dynamics that are going on. But you sense them in your own, rise, your own career. I want to stay for a second, too. The ambition thing is interesting to me, because Aquinas talks about magnanimitas, which means magnanima, big soul.
Yes.
He likes magnanimous people. To have a big soul means I want to accomplish something great for the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
But see, the Girardian take would be, hey, and you and I can both desire the same.
Really, really good point, Ninja of Spades. This is why libs go batshit crazy. They don't have the church to reset their weekly mimetic clock. That is a heater. You need to reset your weekly mimetic clock. This gets you into confession and receiving the gifts, prayer, all these sorts of things. These are all resetting your mimetic clock. You're giving up those desires. You're releasing them for the purposes of not holding on to them to the point of rivalry, and then beyond that, scapegoating. Because the scapegoat mechanism, this is the whole point of Girard, and people have talked about this at length, the scapegoat mechanism was broken by the cross. The fulfillment of that scapegoating mechanism was broken by the cross. By the human species-wide condemnation and execution of not just an innocent victim, but the all-powerful God of the universe being the innocent victim who was scapegoated. It broke that mechanism, and so it doesn't yield any sort of benefit. It doesn't yield a payoff. It doesn't have the same cohering effect. And yet we still we play this over and over and over again. Being grounded in God, i.e. touching grass. Yeah. The Epstein thing proved this. Yes, good point, Zoomer Dylan. The Epstein thing proved that. You got the whole payoff that you wanted. Yeah, and he literally died. And yet it persists.
Great goal. Let's say, so you're a politician. It's the common good.
Yes.
And like, hey, let's all get involved. We all want the common good. We're not looking at each other. Mm-hmm. We're looking together at a transcendent third. Yes. That's Aristotle too.
Yeah.
But see, that's the distinction between a healthy ambition and the one that becomes fussy and self-regarding.
Correct.
And,
Yeah, and I think it can become even the desire. This is, again, the social element to human beings. It's not always a vice. It can very often lead to virtue.
Right.
But it has to be ordered in the right way. And so, if let's say you take two politicians who both are trying to achieve the common good.
Yeah.
The difference between a vice and a virtue is whether or not the underlying impulse is rightly ordered.
Now, that can lead to them working together, them recognizing their respective strengths and weaknesses, and actually trying to sort of do that together.
Right.
That could also lead to, well, if we both want the same common good, and then let's say we both want the same office in order to get to that common good, then that leads to rivalry again for rivalry's sake.
Yeah.
And so I do think that one of the takeaways of sort of this through line of Augustine to Girard is that you constantly have to be on guard.
Yeah.
and recognize that something that is good in you can be ordered to something very positive, but can also be distorted. And this is, you talk about Satan, like I think of I forget who has this quote, but the devil's greatest trick is to convince people that he didn't exist.
Right.
There is this thing where it's like a very, very good thing and pointed in the right direction. If you just get a little off pace, it can become quite malicious very quickly.
It can turn like that. It's a subtle thing, which is why you need prayer and spiritual direction a lot in your life. Because you can be going this path. Oh, I'm on the magnanimous path. I'm just seeking. Well, no, but you actually took a turn a while ago. But and the signs of it, though, look in Galatians. Look at the fruits of the flesh. Paul calls somewhere.
Yes.
Look at mimetic rivalry breaking out. Then you've deviated from the right path.
That's right.
But to my mind, spiritually speaking, that's the great thing in this book that people can really get. It applies to anybody, no matter what field you're in. How are you desiring? And what's the nature of your desire? And you tell a moving story about your own, conversion. It's